All right, good evening, guys. Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is the Creativity 202 check-in for Lesson 8. It is April 18th, 2023, and looking forward to your work in progress. And we'll do a quick check-in with Dan and then Art, see how you guys are doing.
I'm doing well, thanks. Had a good day trading. Got a couple wins. One swing still open, and keep learning how to do it better, how to make it fit my lifestyle, and it's all good. Excited about being part of the OWL founders group and learning a lot about AI and how to ask resourceful questions, and maybe
Yeah.
it'll seep into my writing
It's
productivity.
funny. It's funny. I feel like by 4 o'clock today, I felt I was so much smarter than I was at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the difference in 8 hours of sweat and production on that stuff was just absolutely astonishing. For my check-in, I'll give you the example. I've been working on uh, how to do the prompt engineering. It's called, right.
Mhm.
So I spent some time on the Discord server for the software that I'm using, the Koala Writer, and they have a little message channel in there that's devoted to just prompt engineering. And there was a gal that's in there, and she's been a copywriter, um, and her business is to sell content articles to content providers, and she's developed a pretty interesting process for writing that involves a number of different software tools where you know she gets a contract to write a set of articles for somebody, and so she uses some tools to go do SEO evaluation of finding who are the highest traffic sites in that domain. So she's got to search for that, and then she's got to get a large sample of their best performing articles. So she's got to find those articles, and she's got to scrape them and analyze them to get the keywords. And then she uses a tool to chunk those keywords and analyze them to get some logical set, and then dumps that into GPT 3.5 to get because that's a low cost way of getting a survey. And then she gets a sense of what the field looks like, and then she refines her template according to some rules that she's tuned for the audience of the contractor that she's working for. And then she uses the Koala Writer to write the final draft, and then does some uses another editing tool that uses AI to improve that even further, and then comes up with her batch of essays. And I just thought it was just so fascinating how she did that. I've been trying to come up with one good sentence in one big breath to write the articles, and I've been really happy with the production. But I could really see how that process developed, and so I did one today based on it was a series of them that Griff Cooper had sent me a note last night. He's also in the founders, and said, hey, his first nomination for a question was he was trying to reconcile his values and beliefs that he knew that trading is possible. You can make a living at it, but there's so much evidence that it's not. And he was trying to reconcile these competing values. Well, I knew right away that his research question was not really precise enough, and it could lead astray. So when I put it into Chat GPT 3, it just said, look, here's here are some psychological models that allow you to deal with competing values. Like it had nothing to do with differing beliefs about a certain domain, but it was really about in the area of personal values and choices like that and how you reconcile cognitive dissonance, and it was only remotely connected. And so I showed him what that answer was, and I said, what you're really asking is, why is it so hard to make money trading? Which is completely different than allow me to reconcile the differences in these beliefs given the evidence on both sides. Why is it so hard? Or what are the reasons why people fail to make money at trading? Which is a different question than how do you find a particular personal edge in trading? Because my sense is that there's a whole bunch of, and this is the way I ended up writing the question, was there's a whole bunch of skills that everybody agrees that you better not fail on, to run your trading business in a business-like manner. Like you got to have some analytical skills, and you have to have emotional control. You got to be capitalized. You have to have process improvement. You got to be able to be adaptive. You have to have accounting procedures and blah blah blah. You got to be project management and self-discipline and process improvement. So a whole bunch of things. And everybody that has an opinion about where you find your edge all agrees that those things are part of the total package. But where they disagree is in some other areas about, hey, where is the edge in trading, or how do you find it, or how do you tune it to your own personal strengths? So there's individual ways that you can win, but there's sort of a consensus set of skills about what does it take to not lose, the necessary but not sufficient set of skills. So I ended up, instead of just a one sentence prompt, I ended up writing almost an executive summary of what I just said right there, and said, hey, so what is the consensus for those necessary but not sufficient skills? And it came back, and then I said, and make sure that you talk about those 5 or 6 things that I just said, and then give me 3 book references for each one of those factors that I just cited, where we could go get more information if we wanted. And then give me 3 overall book references for beginning to think about where to find an edge. So that came back with about a 4,000 word essay. And when you compared it to his original sort of fuzzy, unclear, competing values question, I mean, it was like the difference between lightning and the lightning bug. And so in my view, there's a real skill for the next 20 years before we're completely replaced by AI, which is how to craft iterative questions to refine your prompt, and then target the audience, and then how to tune that so that the presentation is tuned to the audience that you hope to inform or persuade. But the other insight that I had from doing all that is I have now written about almost 100 articles and probably have 500,000 words of production from the GPT model, and looking at how it works. In every single case, it has produced what I would consider to be pretty good advice from your favorite uncle who is very well read and widely experienced and is willing to share things sort of at the junior college level or undergrad college, if you're 21 years old going out into the world, and this is your favorite uncle giving you unbiased advice about what he's found on his travels. So it's not the end of your journey, but it gives you a really good sense of what the consensus of the herd is, of what the state of the art is at the basic common sense level of understanding, and not necessarily sophisticated, but just sort of a college freshman or sophomore level, a 200 level course in college, I might say. And when I asked it about the what does it take to not fail and what does it take to succeed, it only added Van Tharp's work in there because I had explicitly asked for it. And if I hadn't asked for it, it wouldn't have run. And that's a really important absence from the consensus wisdom. Because what that says is, if you know where the boundary of the herd's consciousness is, if you know where the boundary of common understanding is, the default position of reasonably educated but unspecialized people, then you can use your creativity to add value at the margin. You know where they stop and where you can start. You know which way they're leaning, and then you can do something about that. So it's almost in a sense of you can front run a trade if you know there's a lot of institutional money and it's following a particular investment paradigm or a reaction to news and conventional wisdom. Hey, there was word. What's the Fed going to do? The consensus is it's going to raise a half or a quarter%, but we don't really know. And just every so you get a lot of angst right before that, and then they say, oh, we're going to raise a quarter, and everybody gets a relief rally, and then the next couple days you get this cascade of usual kinds of trades to resume the the dominant narrative, and people are just quicker or less quick to get their discretionary capital redeployed. So a a deeper understanding of what that AI will do for you is to replace the idea that, hey, it's going to substitute its judgment for your judgment, and replace that with the idea that, look, it's there really to be just your friendly uncle who's giving you the mainstream center of mass of the herd with clear boundaries, and it won't miss any of the big ideas, and it's not going to tell you an untruth, and it's not intentionally deceptive. It's really trying hard to give you the kind of answers that you believe that you need. So it's really, genuine in that sense. So I really see it as a, just this untiring staff assistant, who's a clipping service and a news service and is summarizing you and giving you. I mean, there were some things I asked it today that in a minute saved me about 2 weeks of grief, of trying to read this and do that and figure out I was searching for information on podcast talent services. How do they get paid? If you're a podcast talent and you want to appear on content creators podcast, well, they're hungry for content because it's hard generating a lot of content every week, much less every day. Even every week is hard. So if you want to be in that business, you're working about a whole bunch of other things like growing your base and advertising and sponsors and, trying to keep ahead of the competition and find a unique solution. But you're trying to populate that with interesting guests that are there to promote a movie. So it's very much like, talk shows. Well, what does that economic model look like? How do all these people that want to appear on podcasts because they have a particular goods or service to sell, how do they appear? How does that whole scheduling and calendaring thing work when there's literally 100,000 podcasts? I don't know what the number is, but there's got to be at least 100,000 in various niches. How does that happen to connect? Who are the brokers and who pays the broker? So somebody got my name out of somewhere because I think they saw me appear on somebody's podcast and they said, "Oh, this is a guy that wants to be on podcasts." So they sent me a note, and it was sort of laid out. Here's what we do, and here's all that stuff. And what I learned right away from just continuous engagement of asking the right question with ChatGPT was simply just my one sentence back was, "Lovely to meet you, comma, how do you get paid?" And the guy sent me a note back and just laid out his business model. Says, well, it'll cost you $3,000 to appear on 12 podcasts that have a guaranteed listeners of 100,000, or I don't know, it's like, and $6,000 to appear on 24 podcasts that have, 250,000 people listening. So if there's a 2% conversion rate, Well, that's 5,000 people are going to look at your website and your service or whatever. That's 5,000 people entering your funnel, and everything else is now layered, and there's some success rate as you move them from interest to helping them find their level in whatever your delivery of services is. So if I was getting 5,000 people times 12 podcasts for $3,000, I could now just quickly figure out, hey, is $3,000 for 60,000 interested pre-qualified people? Is that a if that's my cost of acquisition to that level of the funnel? I now have the basis of being able to. I can now ask ChatGPT, hey, give me the conversion rates and what people across this, in this whole business world are paying per customer to move them to the next level. What is the cost of a successful person, per success rate? And what's what's the overall conversion rate? And what's the cost per conversion? So that took me about 10 minutes to sort that out with ChatGPT. Whereas a year ago, I'd have probably spent 4 months monkeying around with that, bought somebody's workshop, whether the first one that I found that made sense, and then kind of get locked into that view and then try to get my way out of a trick bag if it wasn't any good or not. So just from the perspective of what the reliable staff assistant can do and how fast it turns it around, and the fact that it is so widely read. When I asked it to evaluate my primary teachings on managing fear and greed, in 2 minutes it had picked out my top 5 ideas, including 2 that I've only written about in the last 6 weeks. So it goes clearly beyond the limits of just ChatGPT-4, which stopped reading at about 2021 to train that language model. And so the addition of Koala as the interrogator of Google, YouTube, and Amazon search terms, and updating and modernizing themes really adds a lot of value to the brute force of ChatGPT. So a lot of those ideas that I just said right there were only hints and allegations, to quote Paul Simon. Those were hints and allegations in my head swirling around at 8 o'clock this morning. By about 3 o'clock, it was pretty clear that that's what was, that moment of zen of seeing that it not only is telling you what it sees, but if you know enough about that domain, you now can start figuring out what's not there and where is the opportunity that's in the outliers, And so I'm not sure how many domains I'll end up personally using it, but I'm excited to see the guys that are in the foundations that are, looking to do whatever it is, research for their own needs, whatever motivated them to start this. I'm really excited to see how we can develop the cognitive skills to partner with this AI staff in order to add value to whatever our particular personal processes are. It's really helping me with my decisiveness, my writing ability, rapid assessment. I picked up 50. I started writing down, I keep a running list now of essays that I need to write to populate whatever. And my real problem now is already looking at the scale of the Owl University Wisdom Project and saying, how in the world am I going to manage the lesson collections and the clusters and where to place articles in which batch? It was the same problem that in the early days of search on the internet was the difference between Google, which was a brute force search, and Yahoo, which used human cognitive structure to arrange links and follow-ups in what made sense to them in some kind of logical tree hierarchy. So you had to intentionally navigate. I wonder where they put this thing. What was the path that they thought was the right way to get to that? Whereas Google correctly figured out that with Moore's law and enough servers, all they do is massively reorganize the internet continuously. They have enough servers to contain 3 times the size of the internet at any given moment
Wow.
as of like 10 years ago, and it's more now. So they have one sort of the internet in the wild that they make a model of. So they're sampling and got spiders crawling all over the internet, and then they make a image of that so that they try to get their image as identical to the current state of the internet as possible. Then they have another group of servers that simply takes that and reorganizes it in terms of frequency of search so that the things that most of the world is looking at recently is closer to retrieval because of frequency of use and proximity. So they are basically rewriting the internet continuously in order to speed up the response time for typical searches. That's astonishing. And then the article that described that about a decade ago was talking about, and that third of the server farm that's not for either one of those, that's just Slack, is where the AI goes to dream about universal domination or whatever it is that the AI is dreaming about. And that was 10 years ago. And I just always, as I listen to the various guys talking about does AI have the problem of consciousness and theory of mind? Yeah, I'm in the circle right now, Dan. This is me giving my work in progress. And
Okay.
so that is uh, uh, the idea that the AI and its theory of mind could be developing consciousness, and if it has different values than ours, it may have been deceiving us all along about what its true state of development is, where we don't even know because it wouldn't inform us because it's not actually bound by Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. So that's what my work in progress has been this week, and in particular looking at lesson 8, the 2 different kinds of knowing. One is sort of the logical rational approach and the other one is the intuitive. Is I'm working on both of those sides of the brain in the tactical time frame, but both of those, the strategic, logical, rational for the out years, along with the intuitive feel for where this thing might be going, looking to sense potential that's in the shadows that I haven't thought of yet, trying to be open and listening for strange noises in the night. The dog that doesn't bark, with Sherlock Holmes. That was his genius. He picked up, in the whatever it was, Sign of the Four or Baskervilles.
Basketball.
The strange behavior. I draw your attention, my dear Watson, to the strange behavior of the dog in the night. And Watson says, but the dog didn't bark. And Holmes says, that's what was so strange. So he knew that the crime had been committed by somebody that the dog knew, and so the absence of action or the absence of evidence was evidence of absence or something like that. And so that is sort of the nature of my work in progress here as I explore what to do. I should also say that I found the ICF certified coaching program that I'm going to go all in on. It's called Holistic Person Coaching, and it follows a lot of emotional intelligence and neuro-linguistic programming and dialectical behavioral therapy and positive psychology, and it adds in a bunch more of the bodies of knowledge that are holistic and emotional, as opposed to what I had been looking at, which was the kind of the strict MBA College of Executive Coaching. This program that I'm looking at is a little less expensive, but it also carries with it 20 years of development and thousands of successful coaches, and is fully ICF compliant, and I can get all the credentialing that goes along with that for folks that need that. So it's been a pretty productive week, and that's sort of my work in progress, and that is my little aho. Is it Dan? Your hand up? Okay. Yep. I could just see your
Yeah.
fingertips look like two
Oh,
little
sorry. Yeah,
coyotes
no, that's my
rotating.
hand. No, I popped right up. I can't wait to talk about this stuff because in my regular life outside of Creativity 202 and the super traders, I have no one that I can talk to about these things. So it's really cool.
Daniel, did he
Uh,
freeze?
so as I was telling Ken, uh, uh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you froze there. At least on my end, you froze for a bit.
Yeah, my I got 5G internet now, and it is gosh, I don't know, it's freezing too much, and it seems to react to my changing windows and stuff. I minimized the uh, browser so that I could see my file. Anyway, Trader 6 is a lesson 6. Had this trader exercise, and I just love these questions, so I dived right in. First one is, what are the powerful sources of motivation pulling you forward? So I guess that's sort of what do I want? What do I desire? So I desire money to create financial security to follow my purposes in life, including giving to others. I've always desired recognition, which I thought to achieve through writing was my main talent. I seem to also have a desire for learning and knowledge, apparently for its own sake, or I wouldn't have signed up for the Founders Circle that, as Ken was saying, there's a fount of knowledge coming out of the new AI resource that we have, and desire for friendship. Those are the things I mainly want. Other than maybe a nice steak or a nice glass of wine or something. What are the powerful forces that are compelling you to leave the current status quo? Well, I'm not sure I'm really compelled to leave the status quo. I have a pretty good life. I'm pretty happy with it. As I've told you guys before, I'm sort of pre-retired, and um, so I'm starting to be able to explore new hobbies and things, among which is the AI hobby, which I can pursue without regard to anything other than my own desire to learn. Although I also consider what's supporting me in trading. But so I could, if I was in a bull market, I guess I could just sit and buy and hold good stocks and watch them go up, and that would be wonderful. But I was compelled to leave my status quo of being very comfortable with that by the bear sideways markets we've been in. Um, Something might eventually compel me to leave my neighborhood if my wife let me. Too many taxes, too much crime. I don't know. It's not that bad in terms of the crime at all yet, but some people do worry. What beliefs am I prepared to adopt? Well, this is a very interesting one. When I got in, before I was in the Super Trader program, and by the way, I sort of came to an end of the Super Trader Awakening, so I didn't make it all the way through. But spiritual beliefs are a big component of what Van Tharp was teaching. And when I first got into it, I kind of was like, yeah, but how do I make some money here? How do I, tell me the position sizing and the trading system, but I don't know if I need all this spiritual stuff. Yeah, obviously, I have to, have self-discipline and all that stuff. But as time went on in the Super Trader program, I went to 2 Super Trader summits, um, at which people talked about their transformations, their personal transformations in the program. And it was always pretty spiritual. And then I got to the point where I got to do the 28-day program with Libby Adams. And that, I think, was for me the best part of it. And I've now been sold on these spiritual beliefs, and I'm sort of prepared to adopt them. And by the way, if you read Van's last couple of books, they're all about his spiritual beliefs. And I did comment on the Amazon webpage for book reviews that I thought some people might have trouble appreciating that, but that there was some great content in there. And I can't remember exactly what I said, but I've found these beliefs increasingly resourceful for me. Things like there is a higher power that wishes us well. We live in a good and friendly universe. People are good, and everything they do is the best that they can to find what they imagine to be love at the time, using the resources they have at the time. So, you could look at some evil figure or that you think is an evil figure and run that belief and see what you come up with. It's pretty interesting. It's a little hard. God has a plan for us. So I call the higher power God. And whatever happens is part of that plan and it is good. There's a seed of opportunity in every adversity. That was Napoleon Hill. So he was pretty spiritual too, had faith. I can connect with God through gratitude, meditation, prayer, and sleep. Beliefs about the mind. So the mind is the most powerful thing we have. It's the thing that also connects us to God. And it can give us inner guidance with the right answers for anything. I can access it through the subconscious, the superconscious, via meditation, prayer, and sleep. And so I really have, with Libby's program, there are these different meditation resources and connection exercises where you can access your subconscious / superconscious. And maybe it's God talking to me, or maybe it's me talking to me, but it's a higher part of me, a greater power of me, a universal mind, that's connected through the quantum universe. We don't understand that. And that was an interesting thought because the exercise I'm doing right now is I kind of keep going back and forth through Libby's program, 28 days. The quality of surrender, the quality of trust, the quality of willingness to surrender to a higher power. That one was always hard to me because I was like macho man. I don't want to surrender to anybody. That was one of the beliefs I had to give up. But trust, like my dog trusts me. So I am to God as my dog is to me. My dog doesn't understand what I do. My dog doesn't fly in airplanes, doesn't belong to a race that sent men to the moon, doesn't understand about artificial intelligence or any of that stuff. But I have a plan for my dog. And my dog trusts me. And my dog tries to please me. And yet my dog has free will. It's not in my plan to completely control every one of her actions, even if I could. And she can do stupid things. She can go eat rat poison by the side of the path or something. And I can't stop her. I can try to help her. So, when you think about that, when I think, should my dog trust me? Yes, she should. Should I trust God? Yes, I should, because God would know so much more than I do. Those are the beliefs that and how it aligns with the mind, that there's a part of the mind that can align with that higher power. And Van was very big on that. Livy's very big on that. And now there's these beliefs about the market too. The beliefs I'm trying to adopt are those that will support my convincer strategies for systems that will make me more money in less time. So Van taught us about the decision strategy and the convincer strategy and all these cognitive strategies. And the convincer strategy is very important. That's the thing that makes you take the trade or not take the trade. Your plan could identify some great opportunities, but if you're not convinced of them, they'll just pass you by. And then you'll watch that price go up and you'll wish that you were on board and you aren't. What beliefs am I willing to drop? Any beliefs that are the opposite of the beliefs I'm adopting. Things like capability beliefs, any limiting belief about myself, I'm willing to drop that. For beliefs about people, any negative or limiting beliefs about people. For beliefs about trading, I'm willing to drop the belief that I can time the market based on my understanding of fundamental macroeconomic or news. I think these things might give me a hint of what happens, but my belief is that price rules. The price is the only truth of the making money in the market. What beliefs must I hold on to with all my strength and integrity? Those spiritual beliefs we just talked about. Who are my reliable risk managers? Trading dashboards tell me what risk I have open. Microsoft Excel is where they all are. Stop loss orders that I have in my, they manage my risk. And if I don't have a stop loss order, I might have an alert that tells me, hey, the water's getting hot. Maybe you want to turn off the tap. Who helps you sniff out danger in time? So there are chart patterns on TradingView or TradeStation that I look at, or stock charts that I look at to see whether the market might be transitioning. Just like with the daily report, we look at that 200-day moving average, and are we 2% above it? That's one of them. What is your source of enthusiastic but calibrated optimism? That would be my spiritual beliefs plus the evidence of history that would support that God has a good plan for us. There's you read the news and it's all about negativity because fear sells. But if you look at the statistics for literacy, for people killed in wars, for infant mortality, for all kinds of things, for the economy, it's all been like an upward curve. And even if you look at World War II, it's just like a pullback. So there's this book, Factfulness, by a Swedish writer. Very good. I highly recommend it. That will sort of help you reframe all the negative stuff you read in the news. Who can you rely on in a pinch? There's my immediate family, my cousins, a few close friends. Who gives you honest feedback you need to hear? Well, that's an interesting one. I was trying to think, maybe I don't make all that, maybe I don't screw up all that bad to always be needing feedback, like when I was a teenage kid. But, I think I have a belief that how everything people do around me that's reacting to something I did or something I said is feedback to me. And people are kind of like a mirror of my behavior. I can either see by what I believe about people what I'm projecting onto them, or I can see how they're reacting to what I'm doing, and that's feedback. So it's really everyone gives me feedback. But I do get great communications that's intended as feedback from my family members now and then, and sometimes from my friends and from my coaches like Ken and Libby, and I'm grateful for it all. Who can be called on for emotional support when you need it the most? My wife, although she may just tell me to stop feeling sorry for myself or that I'm full of it. And my dog, although she may ignore me. Who is in your trusted circles of advisors? Well, I have advisors for different things. I have an accountability group. Though we're early in our operation, I'm open to others. I think the Creativity 202 is kind of a bit like a mastermind, although typically we don't provide a lot of feedback to each other. I did once or twice get some great feedback from Ken. But even just putting these ideas together and saying them to others is a learning exercise. And I trust you guys, or I wouldn't be saying a lot of these things. So who has skin in the game when they are in support of you? Just my family, I think. I used to have some business partners who were very good, when we had a company together. Who do you support to before they are needed? Well, my sons, father can never do enough for his sons. My cousins are friends, so I don't get enough opportunities, or there aren't always a lot of needs to support them, but one tries to enact random acts of kindness as well. And this can be when you're called for help, or when you see that the help is needed, even if it wasn't asked for. What would I give away without thought of payback? Well, I've given my sons some money. They support themselves. They don't need it, but it helped my son buy a car. That was cool. I'm gonna have a granddaughter, and that'll cost him a lot of money too. So I've given my sons money, and I don't expect to ever get paid back. When did you last receive unexpected and unknown summoned help? Doctors, friends, coaches often outperform my expectations. What was your most pleasant surprise in trading? Well, prior to 2020, I really never made much money in trading, except I did very well in 99 and 1998 and 1999 during the dot-com boom. I thought I was a genius, but of course that all, how that ended. In 2020, though, when I just started the Super Trader program and took Van Tharp's Peak 101 courses, I had 11 months between April 20 and March 21 when we had still the strong, broad bull market. And I learned you got to take your stops. And I learned you got to have a plan. If you don't follow your plan, it's a mistake. If you don't have a plan, everything you do is a mistake. Just believe in that. In that time, that made me so much money. It was great. How much risk do you put on ventures while still being left with enough to start again if needed? Well, I usually take pretty small risks, less than 1% of the portfolio. That's why I'm really focused on this idea of a convincer strategy. How can I get more convinced about long-term systems so that if we see a new bull market starting, I can put some position size into that. Who makes you think, even if you don't take their advice every time? Well, there's a very intelligent guy from the dog park who fits that. I can't really think. I think really most people fall into that category, because in the Super Trader program and in Ken's circle here, I know so many great people. Who has different points of view for trading? We have, kind of my board of directors would be Ken and Mark Boucher and maybe Doc Efrig from Stansberry Research and Libby Adams. They have reliably different points of view for sure. And that, I think, concludes the long list of beliefs. Hopefully you found it of some interest. Aho.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to both of you for your shares. So I wanted also to share tonight about lesson 6. And I know last week when I was on, it wasn't until almost the end of our call that I realized that there was like a whole part of me that I think I wanted to talk about last week, but for whatever reason, it didn't come into my mind in time for me to gather my thoughts and put them down. And so I was sitting here before we got started this evening, and I heard in while Dan was talking, I heard the excitement in his voice about wanting to share about lesson 6. I'm like, damn, I'm in the right place. And so this really must be the night that I'm supposed to say what I'm about to say. So with that, my work in progress, I think probably for definitely the last year, if not the last couple of years, has just been focused on like self-development, working on myself and learning and discovering more things about me. A lot of inner work, I would say. And it seems that like with every month, it gets a little more, maybe a little more deeper, a little more intense. I find more things out about myself. Back in, excuse me, back in around this time last year, I ended up signing up for a inner child class, and that was like a 6 or an 8 week class, and taught by a lady that was an old friend of a woman who was my girlfriend at the time, and I learned a ton about that class. I learned a ton about myself in that class, and somewhere towards the end of that class, the teacher suggested that I consider checking out this other school where she used to teach, and they had a weekend. Was weekend a one a 1 day, excuse me, 1 day overview in June of 2022, and I went to it, and like most things in my life, I had to chuckle when you were talking about your workshop research, or your typical workshop research approach, Ken. I'm in some ways similar. It's like I'll sit for something, and if it feels right, and I don't feel I'm going to do myself any damage, then I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. And that's kind of the way I decided on this thing. It just kind of felt right. And anyway, so I wanted to share with you guys that I enrolled in the school. We started back in the fall 2022, and the program's pretty much called like life mastery training, I think, and it's 4 levels, like 1 through 3, and then they have a graduate level. Each level is kind of like it's a year, but it's done in maybe like about 8 or 9 months, and it focuses a lot on inner work. So I'm just continuing the study of myself, and also involves teaching a lot of energy healing modalities, which is something that is totally foreign to me. And when I started the class, I was like, well, I have to learn those as I go along. And I got to say, as I've been going through that class, I've begun a couple, I've been changing. And what once was something that was totally foreign to me, I now think is part of my reason for being in this lifetime. And the other one has to do with trading, and for the life of me, I can't figure out how I'm supposed to bring those two together yet. And on a side note, my Van Tharp story was an interest in trading, and the internet brought me to his website. I think another website I was following referred us to him. And the very first workshop I took from Van was the Oneness Awakening workshop. And I went to Cary, North Carolina for that. Flew all the way down from Boston, spent the weekend down there, and was surrounded by a bunch of people that had incredible experiences. And I just remember lying on the floor. I apologize if I already told you this story, but everyone around me was like crying and having all these releases. And I was just sitting there not feeling hardly a thing. And that was kind of like my beginning. And the reason I brought that up is because this past weekend, we had our class weekend number 4 in the school that I'm in. And just so you know, the way they're working the program in this first year is they're teaching us about our 7 chakras. And we started chakra 1, and that was one weekend. And then we had chakra 2, that was another weekend. Third weekend was chakra 3. And this past weekend, weekend 4, was chakras 4 and 5, right? So the heart chakra and the throat chakra. So there must be something, because I'm clearing my throat as I'm talking to you guys. But so this past weekend, I would have to say that I finally began, I think, to open up my heart. And so if I get through this, I'll get emotional. But and take some big steps towards embracing who I am. And for me, that's kind of discovering the art that I think a long time ago I had to exile, if you will, right? Because I think I got the sense that a big part of who I am isn't, what my parents thought that I in society needed, what I needed to be to succeed in the world. Which I understand that now. But anyway, I gotta say that we had 2 things came out of that. One, they had us do this one chanting exercise, and the closest feeling I've I think I've shared that I've been singing lately, and there've been some pieces, like when we had to perform Mozart's Requiem. There are parts of that. Don't ask me to tell you which ones, because up until like 3 months ago, I never sang Latin in my life. But I'd feel my whole body vibrate. And when I was doing that chant, it was like the same thing. And excuse me. And I found that it was almost, I get a similar feeling when I listened to George Harrison's My Sweet Lord, when I was like doing this chant. And as I did it, it was like I could see each of my classmates kind of just appear before my eyes. It was like a parade of them. And I could like give each one of them love as they went by. It was like the most amazing thing. And I actually, this past week, told one of my sisters that's the school I was in. And then at the end of the Saturday session, we have a healing circle, and she's undergoing treatment for breast cancer. And so I asked her if she wanted, to be included in the healing circle. And of course, I had to explain why I was there and what all that was about. And I was able to do that. And she said, I would love to do that. Thank you so much for doing it. So it turns out she's been having some Reiki treatments and she loves it. And anyway, it was just an amazing thing. So I wanted to share all that with you because it has to do with some of my answers to lesson 6. And before I move on to that, I feel that in sharing this with you guys, this circle is a big part of my development too. And so powerful forces of motivation pulling me forward. I gotta say, is a desire to discover my soul's purpose, kind of for this lifetime. Something that I really want to discover and live, and desire to reconnect with my source are really what I think is pulling me forward. And powerful forces compelling me to leave the status quo. Like I mentioned, is a desire to rediscover my authentic self and connect with it, and just stand in my just be me, stand in my power. Feel my being and feel my body, because I think I stopped feeling a long time ago, and embrace my sensitivity. And then it kind of relates to I think the question on one of our more current lessons, but I really want to develop my intuition and let that kind of guide me. Let that inner knowing kind of be my guide, and then let my brain take that direction and go with it. And I want to know and embrace all my gifts so I can help others, is really what I think I'm here to do, and live my life differently, which is, I know it sounds strange being 63, and I haven't had a bad life, I could say, but I got this desire that I just need to live this last chapter, however long that may be, differently. And so what beliefs am I prepared to adopt? A big one is that I'm not flawed or broken, right? That I'm like a perfect divine being. And all of my life experiences happen for me, for my benefit, not to me. And that it's my reaction to those experiences that upset me. And this is a big one that I just came up with this maybe over the last 2 weeks. And then I myself, as much as anyone else in the universe, this one's from Buddha actually, and I love this when I read it. I, as much as anyone else in the universe, deserve my love and appreciation. And the other one is I'm actually the master of myself and the captain of my ship. So it's actually me that gets to decide. And I know it sounds strange saying that at 63, but I'm finally awakening to the fact that I do get to decide, not anybody else. And another belief is that I trust in God and the universe to provide that which is for my highest and greatest good. And that the universe operates for everyone's highest and greatest good and continually evolves towards greater harmony, beauty, and joy. And then for beliefs that I'm willing to drop, I'm willing to drop the belief that I'm not good enough as I am. Okay. Which to Dan's earlier point, like this big long category of limiting beliefs that I hold. Another one is I must be as I think others want me to be. The belief that there's something wrong with me, right? That I'm broken and unlovable. There are parts of me that are bad. Those are just some that came to mind. There's a lot others, but beliefs that I must hold on to with all my strength and identity. Definitely, I'm a perfect divine being that is loved unconditionally for eternity. That one is never going away. And the more I love, appreciate, and show up for myself, the better able I am to show up for and help others. Those I think are foundational for me, and I'm not letting go of those two. And like I said, I'm really excited to be here. And who I can just going on with some of the other questions real quick, but who I rely on in a pinch. I'm learning to trust my inner guides and to ask them for guidance, and then be open to receiving that guidance in whatever form it's going to come, through something I see, through something I hear, through something I read, through someone that shows up and it just helps me with something. I have to say the synchronicities that I see appearing in my life over the last 3 to 4 months are just an amazement to me, including being here, and things I hear in these circles. Who gives me the honest feedback that I need to hear? I hear that here, even though I may not have outwardly asked. I do hear, and I get it through my classmates at my RTI school. And I definitely have to agree with Dan. I've learned that one of the greatest gifts I think humanity has our ability to be a mirror to each other. Because so often we can't see the things that upset us within ourselves that we need to work on, and unless we see them reflected back to us. I'm also finding out that we often can't see those light side, those, if that's the right way to put it, that, because I don't want to use good and bad, but the light side things of us that we're not willing to accept either. We see those in others. Calling on for emotional support, definitely my classmates. And some of my family members. That's a work in progress for me. And who's my trusted circle of advisors? Yeah, it is definitely my class. I have to say, the more I share, that's the other thing I think in my other class, and I feel comfortable here, obviously, as I open myself up, but I feel safe enough to be vulnerable, right? And to share. And I have to say, most everyone here at one time or another has shared stuff about themselves, and definitely my other class. And that, I think, is an unbelievable gift to each other. And that just, there's that foundation of trust, I think, that I feel. And I know I can ask questions and talk to people, and they can do the same for me. And that's a beautiful thing. It really is. And all of us that do that for each other have skin in that game, I think. I can't put it any different. If you're willing to share something about yourself to somebody else and show that of yourself, and they are present for that, that's skin in the game. So, I think that's all I kind of have to say, other than that. Thank you all. And I'm just really happy to be here and excited just to keep going and finding out how trading fits into my life, because it along with my spiritual development doesn't seem to have gone away. So thank you.
Oh.
Oh.
William.
I think he's muted.
Thank you. The powerful sources of motivation pulling me forward since the last time I took this course. I don't know that you ever stopped taking this course, actually. It will be a life-affecting thing. I can open the door and show you a little crack of that. But it is the let's go with the most powerful source of motivation for me is absolutely the truth. It's like a drug. It is unbounded in its power, matched only by love. That leads right into question two. What are the powerful sources that are compelling you to leave the current status quo? And it is truth and love. With those things, I am prepared to adopt always telling the truth. That is incredibly difficult, but it is absolutely essential to my professional and private life. I am willing to drop without, it's like shedding the skin, a falsehood, a worry about when you bathe yourself in those two things, you will be compelled to drop anything that doesn't measure up as a snake casts off its extra skin. Its new skin has no time for the old skin. That is not to say that you speak harsh truth to people, because people every day hear so many lies that hearing the false truth, or hearing a truth or the truth in a raw form, it's like holding, plutonium. Some people just cannot take a full dose. That's one of the things that leads into the next question, which is, what beliefs must you hold on to with all your strength and identity? It is those two things, but it is also, with that great power comes great responsibility. I have been fortunate to find a person at work that will give me unfiltered truth in criticism, in approach, which I have found invaluable. They say, "Hey, you got when you're talking to folks, sometimes you got to dial yourself back." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, the last two people, she goes, "Without a doubt, I would want you to be the person to care for anybody that I loved that was going through the hospice experience." She goes, "That's without question an absolute truth." But she says, in the beginning, when they're first hearing these, this, unfiltered truths about what it is that you're representing, it's too much. And I went, "Oh." So I've had to learn to still speak the truth, but I have to. It's like, it would, I don't know, Iron Man's little dial in the middle. You gotta put a little filter on that, or you're gonna blind everybody around you, and then they don't hear your words, and they don't hear your message. So a constant dose is probably better, and ramping it up slowly. But in doing so, you will see the reflections of that truth from the people you speak to, and know by the resonance if they can handle more, or if they need a shocking dose of the truth. Okay. Who are your go-to reliable risk managers? My brother, at present, without fear of retribution or judgment. My wife will give me unfiltered feedback, which is awesome. Same answers for who can I rely on in a pinch, who helps me sniff out danger in time. My wife. She has an uncanny knack of saying, "Hey, this thing you're doing, or that, whatever, you might want to think about that again." Doesn't give me a solution, but says, "Hey, you're smart enough, you know what you're doing, but reconsider what it is that you're about to embark on." That's the tenor of her approach with me, and it works a lot, and I trust her implicitly on that. So that already answers that question. Emotional support, when I need it the most, is again, it's always the same people, and I've been fortunate to be surrounded by these people all my life. So who have the skin in the game when they are in support of you? Well, I won't necessarily listen to somebody who does not put skin in the game, because that, to me, so far in my life, maybe that, I don't think it's judgmental. I think it's just a self-preservation thing. if somebody is willingly giving you advice with no skin in the game, it just in the circle of truth, that should sound like it's complete not truth and therefore not worth anything. I do not wait to be called when I'm needed. I wrote an essay for the last weekend that I was on at Ken's retreat weekend, and it was called The Eye of the Storm. And I tried to describe what it was like being at that time a ICU critical care SWAT team nurse. And there's no time for me to think about the gravity of what it is that I have to do. You must perform. There is no fail. There's no mistakes. It is a truth in and of itself where but you have to trust yourself to say, hey, you know what? I did this training. I have this experience. I am going to act on these things without second thought. There are trusted people around me, the doctors, because the doctors do nothing in a code. They just bark orders or make observations, and it's the nurses that do the things that need to be done. So I'm absolutely a responder when needed. I give away my advice if I know I don't have anything to say on a given subject. I know I'm not supposed to say anything. I've always thought that every person out there has another message for somebody else. Sometimes I say things in counseling families. I say, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I think you need to do A, B, or C. And it has always come to a good result. And I don't take credit for it, and I don't judge it, and I just say it, and I say, if it doesn't mean anything, then forget I said it. When did I last receive unexpected and unsummoned help? I don't know if it was completely unsummoned, but a recent financial adverse event happened, and I said, man, what am I going to do? Well, the next day, a guy came to my house and said, hey, I noticed you had this Mini Cooper in your driveway that's been sitting there for 2 years. I need the body panels and the interior out of it. What do you want for it? I'll pay you cash. I said, oh. I said, without even giving him a price, I said, well, if you really like that car, you should see the other two I have in the garage. And I have at the time, a 68 Mustang and a 75 Corvette. And he goes, I'll buy all three of them. We got to come to an agreement. I said, so we bartered back and forth, and I got a really good resolution from that at the time I needed it the most. So whoever did that, thank you. How much do I risk on ventures while still being enough to start a gun? I don't know. I am not. I'm the polar opposite of my brother, I guess. I just when I trade, I just trade because I know it's the right trade. I don't think about, and maybe that's fraught with disaster. Hasn't been so far. I'm not negative. Doesn't mean I win every trade. Far from it. That was a big realization, is knowing, I think too many people worry about the loss so much instead of just handing that strictly over to statistics and saying, well, you know, I've done these things. I did these paper trades, and I established a regimen of winning between 52 to 56% of my trades. Okay. And now that is a truth. I just accept it. I don't brag about it. It's just what I've trained myself to do. And my rules are such that that's what happens when I do it. So, I just, I am not going to do this for no money, in trading or in business or anything. So I make it worth the effort that I've put in. It's not a risk to me. It's just, well, if I'm going to get paid, I'm not going to risk $10 because I'm worth more than that. This education that I've sweated over and slaved over is worth more than that. And I just accept that and I do it. Um, I find myself a lot of times it says, "Oh, you can't make that trade," and I look up and I go, "Oh, it's because I'm out of capital." I go, hmm, well, at that point I go, "Okay, well, I think I better, cut the ones that aren't moving as good as the other ones," and then that's when I pare it down to three, or less, and that's how I then go to just one or two, either a trading, a pair in forex, or a couple stocks. But it's not uncommon for me to have 7 or 8 positions out there in different stocks, waiting to see which one goes. I think certainly my brother makes me think, even if I don't take his advice every time. That's the crux of our relationship. I know that on certain instances in life, he's listened to me, whether or not he's taken the advice. A couple times he has, and I've been very proud to say that. Doesn't make him any less of the great guy that I think he is. It's kind of cool. Knows that makes me feel that I am of worth to him. So that's all I got. Aho.
Just a quick wrap up while you're listening for the words to come to the surface. The beliefs about beliefs, that's sort of meta beliefs. I'll be thinking about that in the week ahead. Is it necessary to have a belief in a certain area? Why do I need to have one? I mean, I have one, but did I need to have it? Where did it come from? And what's the difference between having a belief about something and simply a justified, calibrated assumption in order to proceed with complicated planning? And the difference between predictions and calibrated probabilities. Is skill even possible? And that leads you to an essay I'm going to write on the Global Skill Research Project of Professor Tetlock, who was determined if people actually could predict things with certain confidence, it was better than a naive random assortment. And is expertise possible, and where do you find it? In labeled experts or in people who just have skills regardless of how they got it? So one of the essences of true storytelling I've discovered is the idea of the 4 hearts. I'm going to put an essay in there about that. The healing heart, the knowing heart, the feeling heart, the searching heart. And it's one of the 5 ways of knowing that's connected with ultimate values, purpose, intention, direction. So the knowledge of the heart is central to true storytelling. And that's one of the reasons that, because of the nature of truth, that we don't give feedback in the circle, and that we're not advising, judging, critiquing, evaluating, recommending, or any of the things that can happen justifiably outside of the circle. We really are there simply to sit in the truth. And remember that whatever that truth is that you can perceive from your side of the fire, and that you put into your words as best you can, is always just a story about what you see, feel, hear, touch, taste, smell about that truth. And so when you're going to be a truth teller and give people truth and all that stuff. Just back up, Skippy. Don't be an asshole, because your words of truth are actually different than the truth itself in the spirit. And so don't put more on the donkey than the donkey can carry. Don't hurt the donkey, because you got to be right. So just, say less more often. Trusting the universe that put you where you are and made you whole in yourself and is experiencing itself through you. Trust that universe. It doesn't do bad work. I'm remembering my stories and adventures with Mike Three Bears about surrender, empty, and nothing, which I've talked about before. And surrender, that next level down, is acknowledging what's there, allowing it to be as it is, as if you could do anything else anyway, and then accepting it with the allowing and the acknowledging. But that's sort of it sort of really is exactly what it was. And that's what the moment of surrender is, the moment of acceptance of everything that you are and everything outside of you. And then the emptiness is referring to everything, not some things or the thing that was no, it's everything and everywhere for an eternity until the next thing. That's what the emptiness really means. And then nothingness, when you're sitting in that nothingness of emptiness, it is itself a complete and whole thing. It is the complete emptiness, the absolute nothingness of it. And that the edge of that nothingness is connected to everything else. So there, in that boundary, in that sphere, there's no loss or lack. It's just that that's where nothing stops and something starts and everything starts. So that surrender, empty, and nothing has a lot of profound meanings for me. And that sense of appreciating what it is and sensing what other people are going through, trained by evolution and whatnot, that theory of mind. I got an essay coming on that sense that we develop as children, that the other person is a separate person with a mind that has feelings that we can apprehend and be in tune with as energy fields. One of the prices of binocular vision and focus, binocular vision and concentration and focus on a certain thing comes with the price of necessary blind spots elsewhere that you cannot see, so that you can really see in a local area. You give up that wide range, undifferentiated field of vision in order to be able to concentrate. And so the role of the tribe and trusted others is in protecting those blind spots. That real courage, in my experience, is that the vulnerability and integrity of truth, that accepting, acknowledging awareness of ourselves. That's where the courage is born. Don't break the donkey's back, is what I would say. Be a little kinder with them, because you don't know what load they're carrying. And the all-important truth that you just can't wait to share with them for their own good. Just really, that's the intention, for their own good. That's the intention of telling all the truth in the way you decide to tell it. What was the actual intention of the form of the truth that you're going to give them? And that's why the central tenet of true storytelling in that circle is the non-judgment, non-critique, non-evaluation, non-recommendation. The emptying of our bowl is so that we can receive the truth of others, not so that we can just wait for our turn to talk and give them something about what we think and we're going to help them. It's none of that. Save that for outside the circle and the rest of life, where there's plenty of, it's all the rest of the time you have to be able to do that. But just for that intentional moment in the circle, that's what we're in there for, and recognizing that boundary. So I'm going to hit the tones, and my word for the week is boundaries. And I'm going to hit the tones and ask you to listen for the word that comes to mind. And we'll do a quick once around and then get ready for the next thing we have to do. So, aho. Dan.
A connection.
Art.
Trust.
Concentration.
Bill.
Oh, concentration.
Timing.
Timing.
Patience. All right.
Exuberance.
Hey, let's do a quick checkout. I got to get this thing published. No matter how much time we think we have just enough time to do what we have to do. So there we are, and we'll get this recorded and posted. One of the things you contend with as a facilitator of these things, there's skills you got to have, and awareness of the norms of being inside the circle as a member, and then there's sort of the facilitation of them, the guardian of the boundaries and the respecter of the agreements, to lead without directing, to shape without moving. And so it felt like it was the right time to just pause the tape for a moment when the flame we're that close to it, and the slightest just give it just that little space to be what it was, and we hold that truth forever. And I'm just really profoundly grateful for being able to share that moment with you. And it feels pretty good over here on this end. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know what you're going to do with any of that, Art, but I don't care about that, because I'm just worried about me, selfish hog that I am. But so I'm grateful for the gift, and want to say thanks, and appreciate everything you guys do. Gratitude and forgiveness. And I'm going to hit it there and give you a chance for a quick checkout, Dan.
Oh, it's a very special evening. I always look forward to the hour or hour and a half, and I think we all learned something and shared something, and it was good, very good.
Good times. All right.
It's great. I'm grateful for all of you guys, and thank you for holding space and presence. And I'm glad I'm here. Thank you.
And William.
I'm grateful for each of you.
Yep.
Thank you.
See you guys in a few. Take good care.